to start. I have started the recording, Marcus.
Okay, so we're good to go?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Okay, guys, so let's start out. Welcome to another lunch, power lunch. Today we're gonna be talking about Azure management groups and blueprints. Okay, this is a relatively new feature of Azure on the governance part. So I thought we could talk about it a little bit because I don't know if everybody's aware of it. It's like two pretty simple solutions, but that can help. We can help all a lot. So before we dig into that, we always like to share some updates. Just see what may. Okay, here we go. We all like to talk about a little bit of updates. So we had our Connect event. So we had like a ton of updates. We cannot cover all of those here, but I'm highlighting some of those that I really like it. So the first one is like if you're playing with containers, we have an ACI, which is a completely serverless container offering. So our ACI containers now can be spin up with GPUs enabled, which is pretty nice. Another thing, if you're using site recovery, ASR, so ASR can now DR zone VMs. So if you're leveraging zones with your VMs, you can DR into another region, also leveraging zones, which is pretty neat. We just released our GA for our PaaS offering of MariaDB. And if you guys are using API management, so now API management always had a cache feature, but it was an embedded cache into the API management platform. Now we're enabling you to bring your own cache. So you can use Redis cache or whatever is the cache you prefer, and you can use that as the cache of the API management platform. So again, just 4 updates among a huge amount that we had this week, but it's always nice to talk some updates before we dig into the subject, right? So as I mentioned to you, we're going to be talking about management groups and blueprints. And management groups and blueprints are 2 features of a set of features. You are seeing policy, resource graphs, costs. So we have a set of tools to help you guys do governance. Blueprints and management groups are 2 pretty useful ones that we're going to be covering today. So you probably heard or read about Azure scaffolding, right? So Azure scaffolding, and there's a link down below, is pretty much a manual process. So it's nothing related to technology, but it is a process that you should go through to pretty much, see what are the resource tags I'm going to use, what are the resource groups, what are the whole basic access control that I'm going to use, if I'm going to use security center or not, if I'm going to use resource locks or not, what are my naming conventions, and so on. So usually customers, they assemble like a cloud team, they get together and they go through this exercise of setting of first of all, understanding which they're going to use, which they're not going to use, how they're going to use it, and then there is an effort of setting that up into each and every Azure subscription that the customer own. And also we have to create a document on how to apply those for future subscriptions, right? So we start having customers requesting our help, saying, hey, how can you help me with that process? Because it is important. We need to do. We are completely fine of doing for 1, 2, 3 subscriptions. After we get a good number of subscriptions, it starts to get hard to do it, right? Because first of all, Azure, everything is per subscription. And also, anytime you create a new subscription, you have to go all over again. So that's why we create the management groups and the blueprints. And we're going to be talking about the management groups before, right? So what is a management group? It's just a way for you to organize your subscriptions in a hierarchical way to do governance. So this is different than Azure Hierarchy. Azure Hierarchy is oriented through billing and through ownership of the subscriptions, right? We don't have time to go through Azure Hierarchy right now, but if you don't know what it is, go search and check it out because it's also pretty important. Management group is okay. So now I just figured out my hierarchy. I know that I have 10 subscriptions or 20 subscriptions for some reason. How do I manage them collectively? How do I do policy? I do whatever I need to do, naming conventions, all at once. I don't want to keep repeating that work, right? So you can create management groups. Management groups, think of a management group as a resource group for subscriptions. So you can put subscriptions together into the same scope. So I'll give an example. There's a print screen. So for example, here you have a Contoso root group. Then you have the marketing management team with one subscription. You have the IT management group divided into infra and app. The infra team has 2 subscriptions and the app team has 1 subscription. Now, what is neat about the management groups? Now, let's say that you want to apply a policy for every single subscription, right? So let's say you want to apply a policy saying, stating that every single resource needs to have a name convention and every single resource has to have a tag cost center, right? Without management group, you have to create that policy on 4 subscriptions and apply them.
Excuse me, Marcus. I hope I'm not making a mistake here, but I don't think your slides match what you're talking about.
Well, my slide is on management groups to organize subscriptions.
Right now, I'm looking at a slide that says virtual machines by location.
Really?
Yes.
Yes, actually.
Everybody seen that?
Yes.
Yes.
Holy crap.
Yes.
Well, just 1 second.
I figured I'd let you know before you went too much further.
Yeah,
Sorry.
sure.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, I'm seeing the right.
Are you sharing 2 screens or?
I'm sharing just 1 screen, but I just have 1 PowerPoint open, which that's.
I think somebody, maybe it's somebody else. Jay.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think someone else is presenting.
Yeah.
Oh, now
Jay?
that I stop sharing, I can see the screen that you are sharing. Well, let me try to share again.
Jay,
Request control.
Yeah, just click on request control, man. On the bottom, there is a button called request
I already
control.
click it. Wow, I don't know who's presenting that.
It says Jay Witt in the corner. Is that maybe who's
Jay?
presenting?
Yeah, that's.
I'm like waiting for approval on my request control. Something
Okay,
really.
I'm gonna remove the participant. Okay.
Okay.
Good.
Okay.
Thank
good.
you.
Okay, man. Sorry, guys. Go ahead.
Hey, sorry about that, guys. Let me try it again. Okay, so let's try to do it again.
That was weird. That he's not even in our meeting.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I removed him.
Oh.
So can you see our management groups for organization?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can, man. Thank you.
Gotcha.
Sorry about that, guys. I don't know. Literally, I don't know what happened.
The joy of Microsoft Teams. Go ahead.
Yeah. So as I was saying, again, now just repeat myself real quick. So let's say that you have this company, right, Contoso, and they have a marketing group with 1 subscription, an IT group divided into infra and applications, and 3 subscriptions, 2 infra, 1 application, right? Let's say that you want to create a policy and you want to apply a policy forcing a specific naming standard on everything. Without management groups, you need to apply in all 4 subscriptions. With management group, you can apply the same policy into the Contoso root group, and it'll get cascaded down. Now, let's say that now you have a specific policy that you want to apply only on the infrastructure team. Let's say, for example, no public IPs allowed. So you can create a second policy, for example, and apply just to the infrastructure management group. So only on those 2 subscriptions the policy will be applied. So a management group is a way for you to regroup your subscriptions independently of the hierarchy that they are in. So the hierarchy is much more for billing purpose, and you may organize your subscription into department, business units, and so forth, because it's for billing purpose, right? And management groups is for us technical guys managing it. So if we need to manage 20 subscriptions, but we need to manage those the same way, we can create a management group and add those 20 subscriptions to the same management group. Once we do that, and everything regarding governance, we apply directly to the management group. And that's our scope, right? So as simple as this is management group. Now, if you saw this scaffolding, you will see that it's not just policies, right? It's naming conventions, policies, tags, resources. So to go along with management group, we create something called blueprints. So remember that I told you about the scaffolding, and I said that you should create a document, right? So the blueprints is pretty much a way for you to automatically apply that document. So inside a blueprint, you can pretty much configure how your subscription needs to behave. And then you can, instead of applying a single policy into a management group, you can apply a whole blueprint to that management group. Okay, so let me show you what I mean by that. So when you create a blueprint, you can create policies, you can create resources, you can create role-based access control, you can create run books, you can select curated marketplace offerings, and make all of that into a blueprint. After you created that blueprint, you can apply that blueprint to a management group or to a subscription directly. But if you apply to a management group, every single subscriptions below that management group will get that blueprint applied. So, for example, just as an example, you can create a blueprint that say, hey, I have a policy that says that no VMs can run with public IPs. I can create another policy saying, hey, I cannot have any VMs running without anti-malware. I can create a third policy saying, hey, automatically install Azure Monitor agent on every single VM, Linux or Windows, right? Then I can say, okay, every single subscription that I have, I will create a resource group called networking. And inside that resource group, I will create a network named, I don't know, Corp. And that network will be connected through VPN to my corporate network, right? So I want to make sure that my cloud team is a contributor of every single subscription that gets created. This is RBAC. And I also need to run at the end of the blueprint, I need to run this specific PowerShell that does whatever. So you create that blueprint, right? Now you go and apply that blueprint to your infrastructure management group, right? Now, a week later, a month later, you go and create a new subscription and put that subscription into below that management group. The minute you do that, that whole blueprint gets applied. So a resource group named networking gets created, the network gets created, the VPN gateway gets created, the 3 policies that you configure gets applied, the whole basic access control giving your cloud team group role as contributor or the subscription level gets done, and on the end, I run that PowerShell script for you, right? And another pretty nice thing that you can do, and I'll show you a little bit later, you can do it and lock the subscription. So after you lock the subscription, nobody else, even if the guy is owner or a contributor, will be able to change it to drift from the blueprint. So this is pretty handful if you are thinking about automating and using, CDCIs and all this kind of stuff on how to govern your blueprint. right? And then after you create it, as I mentioned, you can apply directly to a subscription or to a resource group. So just to give you an example, and we're gonna switch to the Azure portal, but that's the icon of the blueprints, and I'll show you also the icons for the management groups. And let's say that I apply a blueprint on this subscription, forbidding marketplace offerings. So if I try to deploy, you're gonna see that there is a blueprint that is forbidding the deploy of marketplace items. So just as an example for you guys. So let me go ahead and switch to the Azure portal real quick just to show you guys. So this is the Azure portal, right? So here is the management group. If the management group is not on your favorites, you can always go to all service and search for the management group. If you select management group, right, you're gonna see that I already have some management groups created. This one that I created, so I created one called Milhomen Corp, it's my last name. And I add 2 subscriptions to it, right? You could do nested, I didn't, but you could do nested. So I add 2 subscriptions to my management group. So anything that I assign to that management group will automatically get assigned into those 2 subscriptions. Right, as simple as that. If I need to add a new one, I can just create add new management group. I can create a new one or use existing, right, from the list. I don't have anyone without it. So I can create one, give it a name, and pretty much save it. And afterwards, I can assign other management groups and assign other subscriptions if I like to. If I go, so after I created my own, right? If I want to, I can go to policy. This is the icon for policy. If I go to policy, sorry, not policy, I said it wrong. Blueprints. This is the icon for blueprints. If I go to blueprints, you see that I already have a blueprint definition over here. But we can create a new one. So if I create a new one, create new blueprints, I can pretty much give it a name. So print 02 or whatever I want to call it. I give it a description. I selected a definition location. Now, what you're gonna see here is that the location does not need to be a subscription. I can select my management group, and you can actually see. So I, as a Microsoft employee, I have 2 subscriptions that I can play with it, right? Those 2 subscriptions, they're actually part of a whole set of management groups. So this is the Microsoft EA, then there is a Contoso management group. Inside a Contoso, there is an IT team management group, and you can see that I do not have access to those, right? Inside the IT management group, I have my subscriptions, and I was able to create my own management group and add those 2 subscriptions to my management group. So I will select my management group. So I'm pretty much saying, hey, this blueprint will live on this management group, and I can pretty much assign them to anything on that level or below. Next, I'm gonna go to artifacts. And here is where you're gonna spend most of your time. So you can add an artifact. So when I add an artifact, I can choose between policy assignments, role assignments, resource ARM templates, or resource group. So for example, I can select policy assignment, and I can say deploy log analytics agent for Linux VMs. So if I add this, and if I click on it, you're gonna see that I can set right now the name of the log analytics workspace, the Azure Monitor workspace we're rebranding, or I can set the value at assign time. I will leave it as set the value at assign time for this one. Save it. I can add a second artifact. I can say role assignment. So I can see here, for example, that I want to be, I can select contributor and I will select myself. But here you could select, for example, an Azure AD group. So you're pretty much saying, hey, anybody who gets applied, who this blueprint gets applied, it will make this group a contributor, right? Automatically. I can add a third artifact. For example, there is a resource group. So I will create a resource group named networking, for example, in East to S2. Or again, I can set this value at assignment time. Add it. So you can pretty much create the blueprint of your subscriptions over here, right? So next, I can save as a draft. It is saving. So it is a draft right here. If I click on it again, you see that now I have the option to publish, right? It will not allow me to do assignments until I publish. So if I click publish it, I'll give a version for it. So 1.0, I can create a note for the version and I can publish. So after it finishes publishing, if you refresh, you will see that now I can do assignments. So I can click assign the blueprint, right? Remember that I created that blueprint under my management group. So I can select anything under that management group, right? If I had created higher, it will appear other management groups here for me to select. So I can select both my subscriptions. I need to select a location for anything that I didn't specify a location for. So for example, East to S2. Remember that I save a version. So all my versions appear here. I can select the version I want. This is neat. I can select lock. If I select lock, there will be no drifts allowed after that blueprint gets deployed. Meaning, after I assign this blueprint to the management group, after I click on that assignment, and that blueprint will make all the changes I configure into my subscriptions, I will not be able to go there and change it back. So I will not allow drifts. If you do not want to do that, you can just select don't lock, right? So if you see over here, everything that I'm creating, this I already select a value for. This I already select a value for. Remember the subscription, I set value on assignment. So here I would fill the value, so the log analytics namespace, all the Linux OS versions that I want, and then I would just click assign. I would not do that right now because I already had other policies running that would conflict. But after you click assignment, that blueprint, you get assignment at the management group level on every single subscription below that management group, and I'll be done. So if I have rules stating naming conventions, if I have rules creating resources, if I have a whole set of ARM templates, all of that gets created for you, right? I'm just going to hit cancel here because I don't want to assign. So as I told you at the beginning, right? This is super simple, but at the same time super powerful when you are, when you have a lot of subscriptions, or you want to prepare yourself to have a lot of subscriptions, or even when you do not have a lot of subscriptions, but you want to make sure that all of your subscriptions follows a standard, right? So this is what I would like to show you guys. It's again super simple but super helpful, and we still have like 5 minutes. So if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer those.
You have 2 questions in the chat.
Oh yeah, let me just stop sharing so I can take a look at it. So the first question is, if you change the RBAC model in a management group, what happens to existing assignments? So it will not touch the existing assignments because it is on an add mode. So let's say that I am a contributor. I am a contributor of the subscription that is under that management group, and you assign on RBAC adding another 3 contributors to that management group. The end result is that all of your subscription, the subscription that was already created, they're gonna end up with 4. Myself and the other 3 you added, right? New subscriptions, once they get created, they're gonna receive those 3 ones that are on your management group.
Cool. That's what I was hoping for.
Yeah. So are there any gaps in the network session that would prevent enforcement of security controls by the network administrator, keeping devs from mucking up? So no, you pretty much can do all of that by RBAC, right? So what I see customers doing who wants a tighter control on the networking side is that they actually gonna pick it up. There is a role called networking contributor, right? So they're gonna actually add that role and create a custom one stating exactly the rights they want their customers to, their end users to have, and would assign that custom role. So you pretty much can control every single aspect of what they can or cannot do regarding networking.
And that's what we're doing today. But what I'm thinking is, if the blueprint lays down the defined network from a security team, how far can we go with it? Can it include ExpressRoute? Can it include the VPN connections? Like, how far can we take that?
Well,
once you lay down that network, do we still have to prevent? Do we still have to come up with a workaround to give everybody all but network contributor rights?
So depends. So let's say you can go as far as you want because you can pretty much deploy ARM templates.
Okay.
Right. So with ARM templates, you can pretty much do whatever you want. Regarding the day, I call day 2 operations. Right. So after you deploy that blueprint, the blueprint is done. Right. You can go into that subscription and change it, add it, monitor it, everything you wanted. Right. Unless you select the lock option. If you select the lock option, you cannot change a single thing after you deploy that blueprint.
You're saying the entire resource group is locked, not just the objects created by the blueprint.
The entire thing is locked. Because you're stating that I want my subscription to be like this and never change. So if you are going to the lock path, you need to be sure that everything you need, it is done by the blueprint, and you don't need to do anything after.
Can you do a break glass unlock on the blueprint?
Yes, if you need to, you have to go and edit the blueprint and move it back to unlock or don't lock.
And I'm assuming this is a separate lock resource mechanism than what's built in.
Yes, this is a separate lock from that lock that exists on every single resource.
Okay, so I guess in reality, you're not using the lock very often, except for extremely immutable architectures.
Yes. For other stuff, you should use the resource lock, right? And during the deploy of your blueprint, you can ask for all the resources that you are creating within the blueprint to be locked through ARM templates.
Any other questions, folks?
So there is another question. So if you can, so this is actually a good question. I will have to follow up. So he's asking, so can I add a EA and a CSP subscription to the same management group and management as a whole? I don't think you can, but let me make sure and I'll get back to you, because usually a CSP subscription will be tied to the CSP Azure AD, and your EA subscription will be tied to your Azure AD. So they are from different tenants actually. But let me just confirm that and get back to you.
Thanks, man.
Hey guys, we are just 1 minute past. Any last question? Otherwise, have a good weekend and thank you for joining.
Thank you, Marcus. Great session, man. Learned a lot.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
See you next week. Have a great weekend.
Have a great weekend. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Thanks, Marcus.
Thank you, man.